Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Football Experience, brought to you by On the Pod. I'm Caleb. He's Nev, and Nev. To start off the show tonight, I hear you've got a shout out, some props you want to give. I don't know, someone. I don't know if it's a person, a team. I don't know, but I'm interested to hear. So, Nev, take it away.
Yeah, so I think that just to alleviate a little bit of the suspense, it is for a person and it's a fellow Aussie. And as I'm revealing a little bit more, it might come a little bit more clear to you. A fellow Aussie coach who won the Scottish Premier League with Celtic. I believe it was the other week they secured it. If
Oh, I wonder who it could be.
Yeah, so big props and big shout out to Ange, who at the start of the season, I believe he was facing a bit of criticism, and I think he was even like losing some games against like some of the, I guess you could say, minnows in the Scottish League, or like drawing them. So he wasn't necessarily getting the results, but they did end up clinching the league last week, and for an Australian who I guess you could say that he's our best coach in recent memory, and to actually be doing it in one of Europe's, it's not necessarily one of Europe's bigger leagues, but I guess established or well-known leagues in the Scottish League. That's I think it's a big achievement, and I think it will open up doors for future Australian coaches who won't necessarily be given the risk to manage teams in Europe. And I just want to get your quick thoughts. Nothing. We don't have to go fully in depth with it, but I want to get your quick thoughts on, I guess, his possible 5-year trajectory or career outlook. Where you think he'll go, how you think he'll do, whether he'll stick with Celtic for 5 years or whether he'll move on to somewhere else. How do you see things panning out?
That's an interesting one. Um, Definitely second the congratulations to him. Well done on beginning to forge a pathway for Australian coaches into Europe by taking on such a massive job as well. I know the Scottish Premier League isn't one of the big European leagues, but to go to a club of that history and that stature, and to have to restore them as well, because Rangers, with the foundation that Gerrard built and now Van Bronckhorst taking over and doing a good job himself, they posed an actual challenge in Scotland. I know it's only a 2-horse race, but you can say the same in England this season. So he had to overcome that. It wasn't just a waltz to the title, procession. So he's done a really good job in that. They play some attractive football. The Old Firm games, I watched 2 or 3 of them this season. They were really, really good games to watch, actually, because I thought both teams brought something to the table. And it feels more like Scottish football is closer to being back to where it was maybe mid 2000s to late 2000s, approaching that 2010 time, where I think Rangers made a UEFA Cup final around that time. Obviously, they've replicated that this season. And Celtic were, I think, made a couple of knockout stages in the Champions League. So there was one where Kaka scored a really good goal to knock them out in extra time at the San Siro, I think. And I think that was on their way to winning that 06-07, AC Milan winning that 06-07 Champions League. So, yeah, I think Scottish football's strong, and Edge has got into a pretty strong league in terms of that, and done a remarkable job. So massive props to that, and doing it from Australia, which is great. In terms of the 5-year trajectory, I mean, there have been rumours, because obviously he coached in Japan as at Yokohama Marinos, I think. I'd have to fact check on that one, but they're part of the City Group, whichever club it is over there, and obviously he won the league title over there, much like an Arsene Wenger, I'm pretty sure, did before he went to Arsenal. So that's no mean feat. The Japanese league is pretty strong as well. And then obviously he comes over on the back of that to go to a massive club like Celtic. And because he's been within the City Group, I think the people within the City Group have been pretty, the word is they've been pretty impressed by what he did while he was part of that. So obviously the way up for that would be. I mean, Man City's too big a job for him right now, obviously, but you can't rule it out in his future. Maybe not within 5 years, but the problem is, and I see like this working up. And I'm sorry, I know we didn't say we were going to talk on this for very long, but it's just I see the working up of a manager, working through the steps. It sort of reminds me, or it makes me think in like parallel terms to that of a boxing career, where you've got someone who's trying to work their way up through the ranks to be a contender, and then finally get a shot at the big prize, either a big fighter or a belt. But the problem is, if along that way you get beaten, or worse, you suffer a knockout punch, that sets you back massively. It almost puts you back to the start, which I think is madness, but that seems to be the way it is. So while I think he's definitely won the graces of the Celtic fans, who knows if next season they don't deliver? And the problem as well for him a little bit with this season is, and I wanted to ask you this as well, but when you look at Celtic and Rangers this season, if you had to ask the question who's had the more memorable season, I mean, it's a tough one because Celtic have the tangible, the silverware. I think Rangers beat them in the Scottish FA Cup final. I think Celtic won the League Cup final. I think, but obviously Celtic won the Premiership, so they have the tangible of that. But Rangers have the run in Europe, beating Dortmund, those sort of beating Leipzig at Ibrox, those magical European nights all the way to the final, and really heartbreaking to miss out on, which we may or may not touch on, but. So you've got to ask the question: who had the more memorable season? That's a problem for Ange, because obviously, if Rangers didn't have this run, there would be no question. Celtic would easily be the better team in Scotland, but Rangers have created something with that momentum, although they never won it. So now, obviously, he's won the title, but if things don't go right next season, then the pressure starts to build. If Rangers come back stronger and regain their title off them, or not their titles, obviously Celtics now, but you know what I mean. And then there'll be pressure in that third season. I think obviously, barring a disaster, will get the whole of next season. But I'm just saying things can flip really quickly, and it's the same for boxers if they're working their way up. If they just take one punch at the wrong time, then they just get knocked to the canvas, and it sets them back massively. But barring no setbacks, if he impresses again next season, maybe has a European run, then I think maybe a la your Brendan Rodgers and your Steven Gerrards, you might have a sort of mid to high mid-table Premier League club looking to employ the services of him. And then if he can impress in that role, and maybe bring silverware to a team like that, like Rodgers. See, here's the problem as well. Rodgers had a fantastic run at Leicester after he left Celtic, and he didn't really get a look in at any of those big jobs. I know Arsenal, I'm pretty sure, became available in the time where he was doing really well.
United as well.
Have become United have become available a couple of times. Tottenham became available, and he was never a high candidate, or it never seemed that way for these clubs. So now that's the problem that Ange has taken by God, and it's weird. Like, where do these managers come from who get the big jobs? It seems like we sort of have a merry-go-round at the moment, and whether that's right or wrong, that's just the way it seems to be in terms of the big clubs. So within 5 years, you'd be hoping for his sake that he's in the Premier League or in a position somewhere where he can make an impact on either a top European league or European football. Maybe Celtic do it next season, but see that Rodgers conundrum and what happened to him, because how much better can you do with Leicester? They were what? Was it 2 seasons in a row? It was 2 seasons in a row they were fighting for Champions League, and they won an FA Cup, and they got late into the Conference League this season, and his name just doesn't really pop up for these big jobs. So Yeah, I'd hope he'd progress, but within 5 years, I don't see him moving all that much in 5 years, if I'm totally honest.
I just want to touch on the Rodgers one because I think that's an excellent comparison. Um, I'd say that it was more Rodgers' integrity and respect for Leicester that held him back because I think he was a very, very strong candidate for both Tottenham and United. I think more so United. And I think he just refused to talk about it. And at the time, Leicester were actually doing really well, but I think that's a sort of point as a manager where you need to, I guess, think about maybe yourself and your own career rather than give respect back to the club that I guess gave you the opportunity and I guess was willing to sort of build around your philosophy. And obviously this season he's had a lot of setbacks with injuries and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that might have been a potential turning point in his career where had he have taken it, maybe United wouldn't be in the position where they are now. Maybe they'd be in the top four. Maybe they would have had a better season. And yeah, it's all about hypotheticals, I guess. But I think I personally think that's where in a position where you need to possibly think about yourself, especially when it comes to the massive jobs like within the top four. But I guess Leicester weren't that far off top four. They finished fifth last season, and it was till the last day of the season as well. So he had an argument to stay at Leicester instead of going to United.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's probably a little bit of that loyalty, but it was also probably a bit of the football situation as well, because for the last 2 seasons, and I think Leicester have been quite disappointing this season, if I'm honest. But for the 2 seasons before it, they probably should have finished top four one of those seasons, because I'm pretty sure last season, I think you're right, they finished fifth, and I think even the first season they had a fight. They fought pretty much to the end of that season to be in top four as well. So to not break through and get that scalp, and then just stay there, and then this season, because they've been disappointing. I mean, when that year when United were getting Ten Hag in, how much was Rodgers' name being touted? Maybe more at the start of the season when they first got Rangnick in, but even then they chose Ralph Rangnick as an interim over getting a Brendan Rodgers. So like how does a manager on that path get themselves to get a big job like a United, like a Tottenham, like a City, like a Liverpool? How do you get yourself to that point when you can do so well at a job and get Leicester all the way to the precipice of being in the Champions League and even win a major trophy for them? And that's still not enough. I mean, what are you meant to do? So 5 years, I don't know about big club, but 10 years, if everything goes right and those connections he has within the City group still rate him and watch from afar, then who knows? He may be able to crack into a big job, but everything needs to go right, because it's kind of like I keep saying, it's like a boxing career. I mean, you can't take a punch, you can't take a defeat at the wrong time, because it sets you back massively.
I think that's the perfect analogy with the boxing one. That's I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, and but yeah, I mean, that was a good little curveball you threw out there. The props there, Postecoglou, and got us into a little interesting conversation I wasn't expecting. So thanks for that. But I think it's time to get back to something that I didn't, and I'll be the first to admit it. I didn't think we'd be talking about it as well. Pretty much the first topic that was on the agenda, and that is. Should I whisper it? There's only one game, so I don't think I need to. But is there a title race? Can City drop points at home to Aston Villa this weekend? I mean, I don't know. I conceded it, but I'm not going full believe stage yet. but there's a lot of juicy little storylines around this last game of the season, aren't there? Really.
I think the storylines is a good way of putting it, and I know you just said that you conceded it. I think a week or two ago, once I think was it when Tottenham drew with Liverpool.
It was. I conceded after City beat Wolves with that De Bruyne display.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. Like City are playing at home. It will be a packed stadium, so they can actually win the title in their home ground as well, or at their home ground. And I guess just a tidbit that I read. Apparently, Aston Villa get I think they get apparently 15 million if Jack Grealish wins the title with City. So Aston Villa get a massive bonus if they lose. They get.
I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. That's no good for the storyline.
Yeah, but for the integrity of the game, firstly, how much of that 15 million will actually go towards the players? Yes, it could go towards signing maybe a gem, or a diamond in the rough. Like a player who is sort of off the radar and like you managed to get him for 15 mil. I think Coutinho was signed for 17, just like that was confirmed the other week as well. So they just got Coutinho for 17 mil. But like you throw that in as well, but that I guess that can fall into match fixing to a certain extent if they tell them to lose. But then I also mentioned on the last podcast, how fitting would it be if Gerrard makes up for that Chelsea slip? Was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago now? By drawing or beating City, because City have to go for a win, and let's face it, their defense is a little bit depleted at the moment, so they could be slightly vulnerable, especially with Fernandinho on the back, who does not have any legs. Like, he might be quicker in a wheelchair than on his feet. So like I think it's a little bit more possible than what people might think. But if City within the first 10-15 minutes score, if they score one, I think it's pretty much over, because usually once they, especially against a team that is most likely going to sit back and defend in two banks of four, it just opens up the floodgates after that, like, because then Aston Villa know, okay, well, do we either shut up shop now and accept the 1-0 defeat and not get humiliated 3, 4, 5, 6-0, which is City are more than capable of doing, or do they just say, screw it, let's go gun-ho, let's go end-to-end. It's the last day of the season. We got nothing to lose. We're not being relegated or anything. We can't. I don't think they can move up the ladder with a win or a draw. Like, I think they're pretty much stuck where they are. Where are they? Aston Villa 45 points. Yeah, they can move up to 11th or 12th, I suppose, depending on how the other results go. But yeah, they're not playing for anything. They can play with decent freedom, and also depending on how the players respect Gerrard, they might play with a little bit more, enthusiasm or belief for Gerrard, knowing that he's obviously a Liverpool-born, Liverpool legend, all this stuff. So that there's a lot of these little factors that could play, especially from a psychological perspective as well. Like that could play a part in this game.
Definitely. But the storyline stuff is really interesting, and I want to kind of go into it bit by bit. But first, my jaw nearly hit the ground when you told me, because I hadn't seen it, but the Coutinho sign. I knew he signed for Villa, but for 17 million.
I'm pretty sure it was 17.
Did Barcelona? Well, yeah, no, I looked it up. It was. What did Barcelona pay for him? Was it 140 million euros?
Yeah.
Is that the singular biggest loss any football club has taken on a player? That is incredible.
Griezmann, perhaps, unless he's still on loan.
That's fair. Griezmann has been a debacle at Barcelona. He just hasn't fit in at all, and he looks a little past it now.
But hang on, just
but
while
they're both Barcelona. Oh
no, but just while we're on the Barcelona topic as well, was it 2 seasons ago that Coutinho scored? I think he assisted and scored against Barcelona.
That was the lowest, wasn't it? The 8-2.
Yeah, there wasn't that clause in his loan deal where he could not play against Barcelona. They didn't even put that into his loan deal. And he ends up scoring and assisting against them in this. Was it the quarter or the semi? The quarters, I think.
Quarters.
Yeah.
That is a low.
Yeah.
That's a low key top. I don't know, whatever sort of moment in footballing history. To be quite honest, not only did Barcelona lose 8-2, but their own player came on and I think he scored 2, or he scored 1 and assisted 1. It was a collapse of epic.
And I believe there was a transfer clause in when Atletico sold him to Barca that if Coutinho wins the Champions League, Barca have to pay Atletico bonuses, and I don't think it's Liverpool, and yeah, so I think Barca had to also pay Liverpool bonuses
because he won it with Bayern.
Because he won it with Bayern. I'm pretty sure I read that was a thing, but I'm not. I read about it. I'm not sure if it was confirmed or not. So not only does he score against you and help put, I guess, more salt and shit in the wound of your defeat, but you also have to then pay I don't know how many million to the team that you signed him for because he won a title for another team. Man, that's just a shit show.
No, it's as you're saying all of this, it's giving me a great idea that would be really good for one of the summer episodes to do a deep dive into the Coutinho transfer. It seems like there's enough storylines coming off it that you could just do a whole pod on just the Coutinho transfer.
Yeah, just spend an hour on it.
It almost single-handedly. I reckon there's a deep dive episode in there because when you think about how Liverpool used the money from that transfer as well on that side of it all, it's just incredible.
Yeah, well, I think it is worth explore. If we actually get the facts on whether some of this stuff that I said is actually true rather than whether it was rumor at the time.
Yeah.
Then
that'll be interesting.
It's got to be one of the biggest slaps in the face in terms of transfers in football memory. I can't think of one that's bigger than that.
Yeah, I know. It's just cherries on top of cherries with that story. It's madness. But I guess so. I want to dive into sort of, I don't know if it'll be chronological order, but just how we've gotten to this point where, and what we could see happen where it's gone down to the last day of the season in the Premier League, which is always fun. So the first thing I guess we got to look at is the West Ham game off the back of City, off the back of the Wolves win. They're riding high, and then they get brought down to earth in that first half. And that's the last game that City played. On the flip side, well, I guess I'm kind of making a Liverpool case, but on the flip side to it, the second half performance, you've got to feel pretty good if you're City coming out of that. But then it sort of goes back because if we want our first moment of fate, how much are we going to be talking about that Riyad Mahrez penalty if City do not bring this title home? Because they had a chance to win it from the spot at Upton Park and they didn't take it. That's the first one, because the title would be over. If they score and they win that game, the title is over because Liverpool can't catch up 8 goals on the last day of the season. And they need City to lose at home. So that's the first thing. And then we roll in. We see that result, but Liverpool play that grueling FA Cup final. And I don't know if it was in this time or I think it was before the game. It might have even been last week. But you know the whole story of Patrice Evra and Dimitar Berbatov, what they said about Guardiola, right?
I didn't hear their exact words, but I think I heard Guardiola sort of react to it. I can't remember.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so you'll have
Because
to.
that's the main point. Guardiola reacting to it. That's the main one that I guess I wanted you to have known about. So obviously he comes out at his why has he done that? Why is he biting and barking back at people? Do you think that has put extra pressure on him and his team going into this last game by him doing that?
Uh, it could have, but I think no. I don't think so. In all honesty, like I expect these guys to be professionals and to, I guess, forget about it, because he said it like a week and a half ago now, or a week ago now. So yeah, I don't expect it to like play some kind of massive role. If he was to say it in like, I think they're having press conferences today, and I think they had some yesterday. So if he was to say it today or yesterday, then yeah, because it's fresh in the memory. It's a day before the game. Yeah, but if since it's a week ago, I don't think so.
So you believe that it happened before the West Ham game, before even that weekend?
It either happened before or after it. It didn't happen like yesterday or something. Like I know there was interviews yesterday, but it didn't.
No.
Yeah.
I know that, and I was looking it up. It said the 13th of May, so that would have been before the West Ham game. Well, I mean, you say that honestly, it didn't.
I thought you meant going into this game, whether it will affect them.
No. So I wasn't sure if it was after the West Ham game, before Liverpool's game at Southampton or not, but it was before their game at West Ham. Is what I just looked up. So already that even fuels more fire into it, because that's the reaction after he's defended himself in the press. And while City came out second half and were really good and could have won the game, they still didn't win the game, and they were 2-0 down in the first half. So I don't know. That sort of leads into the whole narrative of, could City actually bottle this? And then we go after the West Ham game, and this was the bit I was really nervous about. Or not nervous because I had conceded it, but this was the bit where I thought Liverpool would stumble, because they'd played the FA Cup final, 120 minutes, full strength team, and they've still got a Champions League final to come in the coming weeks. So for me, just the way even Klopp managed the FA Cup final, I knew that he would line up with the team that he pretty much lined up with no big hitters out there except for the goalkeeper, because he doesn't have to run around. He didn't make the Guardiola FA Cup semi-final mistake. He played Alisson, thankfully. But the rest of the team, while Liverpool have a really strong squad, and we know that, I mean, that was still a team that easily could have stumbled at Southampton. Not just because of quality, but because of the lack of rhythm as well of that team playing together. And the way it seemed, I think Klopp naming that team knew that it was a possibility that the title could be over that night if they didn't win the game. So he puts out that team, and I think he's just fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. It's about time that these guys got a chance as well. And to be fair, in the game, I thought Liverpool played really well. We got hit by a sucker punch in the first 15 minutes or whatever it was, and that just because of the team that we named out there might have been enough to extinguish the hopes, but they fought back well. And moment of fate number 2, and honestly, I don't think I'd ever seen it before this season, but now we've had 2 in the space of a couple of weeks where the ball gets crossed, someone heads the ball, and then it almost just hits the next person on the head and goes in. Much like the Rodrigo second goal for Real against City, that took it to extra time there. Joel Matip's goal against Southampton was immensely lucky. I can't believe I've seen that twice in a couple of weeks. I don't think I'd ever seen that before. And funnily enough, the main recipient of that bad luck is Manchester City. So Liverpool get this lucky win at Southampton with this team that quite easily could have stumbled. And all of a sudden, we're here, where Guardiola feels like he's under a bit of pressure, where Liverpool are just having this season where things are going the right way. 2 penalty shootouts against Chelsea, 2 wins. This lucky goal, the draws in the Champions League, even getting Villarreal and not Bayern Munich in the semi-finals. Things are just happening the right way. And now that I think there's massive pressure on Man City when we're at this point, and then we can speculate about what we might see on the weekend all we want. But I'm interested to get your thoughts about how you feel that we've gotten to this point, because are you starting to think that this is a real possibility that they could lose, or are you still just like, they'll win the game on the weekend, it's no problem?
I think if they had their full strength defense, then
Another good point. Yeah, they don't have it though.
Yeah, so I think only Laporte and Cancelo are still there, but even Laporte, I think, is a bit of a question mark. I've seen him having a couple of niggles in games and stuff and going down. So they don't have Walker, they don't have Diaz, they don't even have Stones, I guess, either. So Fernandinho's filling at the back. I already said my thoughts on him. And when you're going up against like someone like Ollie Watkins, who is really pacey, that could cause some trouble for him. Look, you definitely expect a City win. If City were full strength, I'd expect the City win. Maybe, I guess you can't say 10 times out of 10, but I guess 9 times out of 10. With a slightly depleted backline, you would expect it probably 7 times out of 10. So the possibility, the door isn't shut. I think the door's slightly open for Aston Villa to get a draw. Because that's let's face it, that's all. The City can't draw. They can't even draw. They don't even have that luxury. Whereas like for instance, and like we'll touch on the top 4 race as well. Tottenham can draw. Like Tottenham have the luxury of drawing and still securing top 4. City don't have that luxury. They need 3 points, because Liverpool are most likely going to be more up for it, considering they're, in one perspective, the underdogs because they're second. They're going to be more up for smashing Wolves and finishing on a high, especially in front of all that the Anfield crowd. Like that's going to be an extra motivator for them, and then they have a week to recover for the Champions League as well, so they can put out essentially a full strength squad. They're not playing on Wednesday and then Champions League final on the Saturday. They're playing Sunday and then Saturday, so yeah, they can field the full squad.
Yeah, definitely. And so we ordered what has gotten us to this point where we did the pod, not this time last week, but on the Friday night last week, and I was conceding, and within the space of a week, I haven't quite taken it back, because, like you say, I think that 7 out of 10 number is pretty good for Man City to beat Villa with a weakened team. But like you say, they don't need to lose. They just need to draw. We can't forget to mention that Liverpool need to win their game. So, but like, how often do you see neither Liverpool or Man City winning in a weekend? I mean, I can't remember the last time it happened. So you've got to expect, if City were going to drop points, Liverpool will be right there to collect a title. And now we have this fun last day of the season, which I'm sure I don't need to remind anyone, but the most memorable last day of the season that obviously comes into mind is 2012 Aguero moment. So if we're looking forward and looking at predictions or how this could play out, I guess we somewhat saw it on that day. A team, and a lot of people have mentioned it because there's so many storylines, like we've said, but a lot of people have mentioned it, but that QPR team is not as good as Aston Villa. But they had something to play for, to be fair. So does that bring them up to the level anyway? Whereas Villa, well, I don't know. You already brought up the Steven Gerrard point, and I think it's not a big deal, but I think it's something. I think Steven Gerrard will, no doubt, is professional and would have been wanting to win this game anyway because it's a blue chip team as well as anything else. But that added like Liverpool thing, and all the Villa players are obviously aware of it. I think I don't know if it'll make an impact, but if it is going to make an impact, I can't see it being a negative one. So that might just give a little decimal point of a percentage difference, if you will. And then if we talk about oppositions as well, I think that fact makes Villa a tougher opposition than Wolves because we saw Wolves against City just last week, and Wolves have really let go of the rope somewhat this at the end of this season. I thought City were on form, but I also thought Wolves were not very dedicated to closing down spaces. So if they come out like that at Anfield, I think it should be a relatively easy afternoon for Liverpool. I'm not sure that they will come out like that, but if the recent weeks have been an indication, and the fact that Connor Cody's a Liverpool supporter, just whisper that one, Wolves captain. But I don't know. There's just so much that is making me want to believe again. But I don't want to go into that last game and then City score two in the opening 10 minutes, which we all know that they can do, and it's all over within 10 minutes. So I'm hoping we get a really dramatic last day, and I'm obviously hoping City stumble. And I would love. I don't know. I would love to if I go full Kevin Keegan on us now. I would love it if they drop points there, but I would love to see Guardiola somewhat choke on his words a little bit because I just don't think he needed to come out and defend himself. Like, why is he defending himself? He's clearly one of the two best managers in the world. Why are you ratcheting up this pressure on yourself and your team? I don't know. Is there a crack there? Oh, I've got my fingers crossed. I don't want to full believe it, but I honestly don't know how in the last couple of days we got to the point where we have a last day of the season that, as you say, the jeopardy is they need to win. They can't even draw. I don't know. It's madness. It's making me want to believe that there's a chance.
The chance of the quaddie. But with that, I just want to add, like, the longer that game stays at 0-0, the more nervy, like the tides will like shift. Like, so the more nervy City players will get, and the more confident Aston Villa players will get. But then you also need to manage that confidence then as well, because with that confidence can come a slight moment of a lapse in concentration. Same goes around for the nerviness. Like, the more nervy you are, you can get a lapse in. So like it's going to come down to like such fine margins, and like, you know, we talk about like the Steven Gerrard influence, Aston Villa getting 15 million if Grealish wins. Like, these aren't like 10 or 15% margins that you would get if, like, for instance, if De Bruyne wasn't playing or something along those lines. These are like you said, like a 0.1% margin or a 0.5% margin. These are like such small margins, but at the end of the day, when it comes to professional football, sometimes those small margins can define it. Like we saw, what was it, 2 years ago, where the ball needed just a centimeter or 2 centimeters to cross the line, and the whole of the ball would have been over in that City Liverpool game.
Yeah,
fine margins. Like, the ball is how big is it? 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters in diameter. So like, well, does that mean like what 98% of the ball or something crossed the line, and that 2% or that 1% of the ball that did cross the line is what stopped Liverpool from winning that game or whatever it is. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, those 1%, those 2% and stuff like that. It's incredible.
and don't forget, Sane's winner in that game hit both posts and went in as well. So I mean, that's got to, like, while that's a good finish, that also takes some luck that it hit both posts and still managed to go into the back of the net. So I don't know. Maybe you're bringing that up. Maybe the footballing gods owe us one as well. So I don't know. There's just so much around it, and I know a lot of the English TV, a lot of the pundits are. And I realized this the other day when when like supporter bases put out a meme about something or other, and it sort of gets you thinking. So like I think it was a Chelsea fan, and they were just the gist of the joke was about how many Liverpool pundits there are working on the British TV. And when I actually thought about it, I'm like, yeah, they do they do have a lot of ex players who are Liverpool working. You think of Michael Owen, you think of Graham Souness, Jamie Redknapp, Jamie Carragher. They get John Barnes on occasionally. It feels like a very Liverpool heavy sort of pundit, and like that sort of helps push this narrative because obviously they're all pushing for Liverpool. So any chance that they can bring up a storyline like this that might, and look, these City players are world class, and they're also world class professionals. So, but like, can they avoid all of this talk? Can they? I don't think you can. I think it's impossible. You want to. It's kind of human nature to be curious about what's being said about you or your team. So interesting, and I'm so happy that we get a last day of the season because they can be ultra dramatic. The other stat, like from a bigger picture thing, just quickly, it's just a fun fact, like you like to say. But Liverpool out of the last 50, I think out of the last 54, it would be 54, but they've got 47 points out of the last 54 Premier League points available, which is an incredible run of form to get themselves to this point. So obviously, I think momentum, I think storyline, it's all there. It's City's to lose. So let's hope for another last day like QPR, but not quite the Aguero moment.
Yeah, you know what?
But
what else I'll just
go on.
throw in as well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that season, that Aguero moment season, wasn't there basically a 16-point shift where City, I think, were ahead by like 8 points at one stage, and then they dropped. Not only did they drop 8 points, they actually dropped to 16 points because then United were ahead by 8 points. And then United dropped. So
then they got it back.
And then they got it back. Like, and was it 10 points or 14 points? But I think it might have been 14 points. But Liverpool had like a game or two in hand. They might have had 2 games in hand. But that's what the gap was. I think back in January or late December. Like I think it was 14 points. If I'm not,
14 sounds right.
Yeah, but Liverpool with 2 games in hand, and I think I even remember. Telling Matthias like you guys have 2 games in hand, and I think they were against like mid-table opposition. Like if you guys win that, that's only 8 points that you're behind by. So it's possible. Like I even back then I was saying it's not over because I always count those games in hand. Like I think there was like those teams that had games in hand, like Arsenal had games in hand, Tottenham had games in hand. Like Tottenham, I think had 2 games in hand over us, and we were only like 3 points ahead of them. And I was saying, I thought even back then, like, yeah, but Tottenham have 2 games in hand. Like if they win both of them, I think they go ahead of Arsenal back then. So like until you actually play those games, I always sort of think, especially when it comes to the top teams, I always think about the team that they will always pick up maximum points. So I always think of the latter, like it's not 14 points, it's actually 8 points because you expect them to win both those games or one of those games or something like that. So I don't know, when it was 8 points or like not hypothetically, theoretically 8 points, I didn't think the title race was over back then.
No, I didn't think it was over either, but I thought it obviously looked very strong that City were going to win it because it's not just the fact that they had that gap in the table, it's the fact that at that time when they had that gap, they were obviously the team who was rolling because if you remember at the start of the season, I think they lost a few games. They got beaten by Palace at home. And they were a little bit off the title pace for probably the first 10 to 12, I think, maybe even a bit longer. But then they just rolled into gear and they were doing that their trick that they did in the 18-19 season of just, I think they won 14 that season in a row. I think they came close to it in the middle of this season. So obviously that, coupled with the fact that Liverpool were dropping points around that time, just led to the notion that this title race looked over. But with so much left of the season, when you're only halfway, you can never say a title race is over unless it's already 20 points and there's clearly no challenger. But there was clearly two challengers this season. Obviously, Chelsea dropped off, but Liverpool maintained and kicked on for the rest of the season. So there's no way you could say that a title race is over that early. But that's an interesting point you make. So I just quickly want to ask, if you had the choice between being 5 points ahead or having 2 games in hand, which one would you choose?
So it depends who the 2 games in hand are against. So theoretically, if you're Arsenal and the 2 games in hand are against Liverpool and City, those are they're pretty much automatic losses. Whether you're Arsenal or any other team, like even if you're Chelsea, they're not automatic losses, but they're very much in the favor of a loss. So you'd rather have 5 points like already in the bag rather than the 2 games in hand. But if you're City or Liverpool, where you're expected to pretty much beat all other 18 teams in the league, and the 2 fixtures against each other with City Liverpool, that they're either a draw or a win. You might win the one at home, you might lose the one away. Then that's up in the air. But City and Liverpool, like I said, they're expected to beat all 18 teams. So if it's for them two games in hand, then yeah, I think that they would rather have the 2 games in hand. But I've heard a lot of players say they'd rather the points on the board because it could put pressure on the teams that still need to play catch up. So it just depends, I guess, on the psychological aspect. I personally, from my point of view, even though I haven't played in stadiums and all that stuff, but but based on my mentality, I think I'd rather the 2 games in hand, because I don't know, when we were playing, we never really played for you did win I guess junior titles and stuff like that, but we never played when we were playing under 18s, we weren't the favorites. We were always that second or third team. So when we'd have to go and play that top team or the second team, we were always underdogs, I guess. So I think I prefer that mentality of the underdog. It gives you that extra drive and motivation, whereas some people fall under that underdog pressure.
I don't know if it's underdog pressure. I don't know if pressure is the right word, because naturally, if you're an underdog, the pressure is more on the team who should be winning the game, I think. But I always love big games, that's for sure. But the general consensus amongst coaches and players alike seems to be they'd always rather the points on the board. I think more often than not I fall under that. But it's a good point that you make about the strength of the fixtures, and how likely you are to get all points from that. So I don't know. That was a refreshing point of view you brought, because most people would say points. So I just wanted to ask that question. Before we leave Liverpool, we'll leave the title race, because I think we've built it up enough and we're all itching to see what happens on the weekend. But I just wanted to touch on another thing about Liverpool, obviously, because I'm a Liverpool supporter and that's all I want to talk about. No, but just the talk that it came up again after the game. Salah hasn't signed the contract. I think we all know. And JB Redknapp after the game for Sky Sports said it was his belief that Virgil van Dijk should always be the highest paid player at Liverpool. And I tend to agree with him. I think he is the main guy. I think he should be the highest paid player. And sure, you could put other players, maybe like Alisson and Salah, no doubt, on the same wages, but I don't think anyone should be getting more than Virgil van Dijk at the club, for reasons we've already stated in terms of the statement, the message that it sends. But I don't know, because I think Virgil's on 220 or 250 or something like that. I don't know. I think him and Salah get paid the same at the moment. So obviously the whole sticking point is that Salah thinks he's worth more. And look, it's hard to argue because he's going to win Football Writers Player of the Year. He's a fantastic goal machine. He has been the whole time at Liverpool. He's an ultimate professional as well. You just have to look at his body and the way he maintains himself to know that. He's likable. The fans love him. And he's very receptive to the fans as well. He always seems so nice. He looks like a good teammate. So it's hard to argue that he's not worth that. The only sticking point is, like I say, the statement. And I believe that the statement's more important than anything, especially when you get to these astronomical wages that they're earning. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying the reality is that is a hell of a lot of money. So really, we hear it all the time. It's more about they want to signal their worth rather than the actual money itself. But I'm still hoping Salah and Liverpool can come to an agreement, obviously. But I just it got me thinking, where does he go? Where would Mo Salah go if he was to leave Liverpool? I want to throw that question out to you.
Well, just before we get on that, like, the whole wage thing is a really slippery slope and like we've seen, I guess, both extremes. So like in one extreme where the club doesn't want to meet the wage demands, let's go with Arsenal. I believe either Wenger or Ashley Cole, they admitted that back then it was literally a sticking point over, I think, 5,000 or even 10,000 euros or pounds per week that they were fussing over. And had Arsenal just given it to him, they would have kept Ashley Cole, who went on to be probably the best left back in Premier League. He's probably the best left back in Premier League history. Depending on how Robertson goes, he can have a claim to it, but for now, Ashley Cole is the best left back in Premier League history. And Arsenal lost him over that, I guess, insignificant amount, 5,000 a week or something like that. So you have that extreme where a club is stubborn on their wages and they're like, no, we're not going to go over a certain budget. And then you have the other extreme where you have Manchester United, where it seems like they're just throwing money like in the air, and then like all the players are just sort of like catching it, and it's like taking how much they can get. That's what it seems like. And it's that sort of death spiral where, like, okay, if Salah, I think Mane's contract comes up at the end of the next season as well. So like, okay, you give Salah a new wage bill. He gets what he's asking for, I think 350 per week. Okay, Mane's going to ask for, let's say, 300 because he's been better than Salah in this second half of the season for me. Van Dijk, when his comes up, he's going to be like, well, as the notion goes, goals win you games, defenses win you championships, and Van Dijk is head and shoulders the best defender in the world. Why am I on 220 or whatever you said? I should be on 300 at least. So you're going to have then 3 players on 300. Then you throw Alisson into the mix as well, where if he makes a deep run into the World Cup as well, and I'm pretty sure he's the starting goalkeeper for Brazil over Ederson. So if that's the case, then he's the best goalkeeper in the world. And I think for me this season he has been the best goalkeeper in the world, especially in 1v1 situations. So so you got your 4 players there that are going to be on 300 plus per week. And then I guess Jota can have a claim, and let's throw in Luis Diaz there as well. I know he just signed, so he's pretty much stuck on that wage bill. Yeah, like you're going to have like 6, 7, 8 players of that starting 11 that are going to be either over 300 or close to 300. And like you're just going to have that sort of death spiral. And then on top of that, if you want to sign players, like whether they're ready-made or almost ready-made, like a Luis Diaz, he was like a sort of half ready-made, like he was already killing it in at Porto. Those players are going to come in, they're going to be like, well, I think I'm around that level, so I should be getting at least 250, instead of maybe like this year or last year, you would have signed that player for maybe 100 like per week, 100,000 per week, or even 150,000. So like, it's just that death spiral where if you give it to him, you're gonna have to start raising the wages of the other players as well. So it's just it throws up so many questions into the managing of finances when it comes to players. In terms of your question, where does he go?
Just before you go on, because I just want to hit on this what you've just said just quickly. In particular for Liverpool, my prediction is that they will let Salah walk before they break their wage structure. I don't think they're going to give in to any insane demands that, like you say, will lead in that sequence of events that you've just talked about. That's my feeling. So that's why I want to ask you the question of where does he go? And the second thing, I think we should come up with a catchy name for this sort of theory, maybe like the Rashford rule or something like that. I think that would be a name that would encompass exactly what we're talking about with these the snowball effect of players who earn money that they just really, and like the Liverpool players, like the funny thing is the Liverpool players, you can argue do deserve that kind of money because they're arguably the best in their positions or what they do, playing for arguably the best team. But yeah, maybe something like the Rashford rule, something like that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but the other thing on top of that is I believe the statistic, and I've heard Simon Jordan say this. Apparently, 80% of club revenue goes towards player wages. So you're leaving 20% for the maintenance and development of this and upgrade of the stadium and the grounds and all that stuff. So 20% is left for investment back into the club. That's insane. That's an insane business model that 20% is only being used for reinvestment back into the club or for other staff wages, so like physios and like just general staff like cleaners and all that stuff as well. So 80% is going towards player wages. Like, so where does it stop then if you just keep on giving like we say all that this Liverpool team definitely deserves higher wages, and I agree with that. But how much higher? How much higher do they deserve? Do they deserve 100% pay rise, a 50% pay rise? You know, because they've done a lot, they've achieved a lot, especially this season. So I don't know. I personally don't necessarily believe in them getting like a guaranteed 250 or 300 or 350 a week. What I think that should happen is that their wages should fall and they get like 100 or 150,000. Even that for some people is an outrageous amount, which you know, it's fair enough. But it should have incentive bonuses. So like you win the Premier League, you instead of like the bonus, if you add that on top of your yearly wage, it will end up being as if you earned 300,000 a week or 350. Or if you win the Champions League, the bonus will be as if you were earning that amount. That's how they should structure it. But instead, all these players are asking for guaranteed money without actually delivering on a result. Because what happens if Liverpool don't win the Premier League and the Champions League? Then they only won the Mickey Mouse Cup and the FA Cup. Do they deserve these massive wages? You can argue against it. So what do you think about the incentive bonuses rather than the guaranteed weekly wage? Especially for United. What about United? Like, you have Ronaldo on 500,000. Yes, he scored 20 plus goals this season, but is he worth 500,000? When you have no trophies to your name this season, not even top 4 to your name, so you're missing out on a guaranteed, I think, 50 or 60 million from Champions League revenue.
It's a tough one because it feels like every club in Europe would have to adopt that model. Because if one club wanted to adopt it, then they will see a mass exodus of players.
It's something...
whether rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, but it's also something that, for instance, in Spain, and this is why Messi couldn't re-sign for Barca, they changed it that player wages could only be a certain percentage of club revenue. So they changed. Then the Spanish, that came from the league itself. So it's the Premier League that has to adopt it. And yeah, I guess you could see an exodus of players going to Italy then until they adopt something similar, or to especially PSG, where they can literally afford your whole squad or the whole city squad. So yeah, you could see that exodus of players, but just to because I've gone away from your question for so long now, but just because, but like this is such a long and in-depth topic, because there's a lot of things to come into this, but to put it simply, on where he could go, I haven't seen much interest from Real Madrid, at least not this season. I think last season or the season before, Real Madrid, there was a big rumor that he could have went to Real Madrid, so that was up in the air. But the freshest one is PSG, really. But and that I think depends on whether Mbappe ends up staying or going. If Mbappe leaves, I think PSG could put like a real big pressure bid for Salah, and then that definitely opens up that door. So I think PSG is the most realistic destination for him if Mbappe doesn't sign on. If he does, I can't see him going to PSG. I can see Real possibly then exploring Salah, since they don't get Mbappe. And I'm going to throw this one at you as well. Apparently, there's rumours that Bayern want Mane as well, and he's in his last year of his contract too. So you have to throw that one in there as well.
Yeah, those rumours have been around for a while, and I'm glad you brought up Bayern. Just before we leave the topic that you brought up, though, I think obviously we don't live in an ideal world, so I can't see how that's going to happen from this point. That sort of incentive-based wage structure, but I think in an ideal world, it would be nice to see them get paid. I think footballers should still get paid a lot of money, because it's a short career, and it's a career they've had to work for since they were like 4. And obviously playing ourselves and not making it to the professional level, we know sort of how you do and how you don't make it to the professional level. And obviously we just didn't have enough dedication to play at that level, because obviously talent's one thing, but you can still be a functional pro if you have a decent natural ability at it. You've just got to really be willing to dedicate your life to it from an early age. And all those years go unpaid. So when people say it's ridiculous what athletes get, in some cases, yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous. But at the same time, I think they should be getting paid handsomely because of the entertainment they provide people, the revenue they bring in for clubs as well, and on top of it, that dedication that they had to show at a young age above all other people of that age who wanted the same dreams, because obviously being an athlete is a highly competitive environment, and a lot of people around the world want to do it. So for all those factors, I think they should be getting paid quite handsomely. But it would be interesting to see if they got a good base level, like you say, like 100, 150, depending on your talent level, whatever it is. And then if there was an incentive at the end for team performance, maybe little ones for individual performers, which we obviously already see. And we already see ones for team performance, like cup bonuses and stuff like that. But if you got paid less as your base, but your bonus was a lot bigger for team performance, what kind of sort of signal and message would that send to players? And would it actually improve their sort of commitment to the unity of the team and stuff? Because obviously we see Manchester United this year. Not many of those players were committed to the unity of that team, and we saw what happened there, and they were getting paid astronomical base salaries. So yeah, that's an interesting point. But I'm glad you brought up Bayern for Salah, because we know at least that Lewandowski wants to leave. We don't know if he will. He's got that extra year. Is it just simply a case, and I know you brought up Mane, but I'm going to flip it. Is it a case of a Lewandowski for Salah trade would be the most beneficial for both those clubs?
So Lever goes to Liverpool.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
he
it.
brings in something
I'm
something different to that forward line, a out and out striker, which we know Liverpool for years under Klopp have not had. And then Salah brings all of his qualities over to Bayern and that team.
No, I don't think it works for either team because Bayern have wingers like they have Nabry. They
Well,
have
Gnabry hasn't signed yet.
yeah, okay, but if theoretically if he signs, they have Nabry, they have Sane, they have Coman, and there's another one there that I'm missing that's like younger. Um, I I don't I don't think I don't think that either team needs that kind of player. Mane works because he's been filling in as a number 9 in recent weeks for Liverpool, so you can see him playing as a 9 for Bayern. You can see that. Lever at Liverpool, I think he would make your forward line less dynamic and less I want to say quick, but there's another word that's there. But like he would make it less speedy the way it is, because like I've seen you guys hunt in packs, and you're quick, and you hunt in those sort of 10 to 15 meter like squares or spaces, and you hunt in 2s and 3s. I don't think Lever, coming towards the end of his career and the player that he is, he would suit that system of how you guys win the ball back in that forward or middle third. So I don't think it's a fit. I don't think it's a good fit for either team. So I don't like that trade.
Well, let me put out the pros then, because I think Salah would get into the Bayern team ahead of any of those wingers that you mentioned. So they're getting an upgrade instantly there.
Yes,
I think their best winger is, I think their best winger at the moment is Coman, and Salah I think is clearly better than him. So you get an upgrade. Mo Salah is a goal scoring winger. So how much do you lose in terms of Lewandowski's goals? Salah probably won't be getting 45 a season, but who knows in the Bundesliga? Maybe he finds it a bit easier, and he gets close to those goals. So the trade off is right there. And then maybe they look at playing Muller as a false 9 like City have and opening up those spaces for Salah. So it might be a case that they want to do something a little bit differently at Bayern. I get your reservations because they have a lot of good wingers already there. But Lewandowski has made it clear that he wants to leave. So they need to find a solution for that. In terms of Lever for Liverpool, 100% right. You hit the nail on the head with my worry would be the counter press. But Liverpool have played the same way for so many years. I would love to see them now put more tactical and systematic tools in their arsenal, because teams have already somewhat figured out what they do, but they've done it probably to a higher level this season, and they've done it maybe a little bit differently to what they've done, but they've never strayed from a 4-3-3. I think Liverpool can stand to stray away from a 4-3-3 somewhat and maybe play with a 4-2-3-1 with 2 holding and 1 playing behind Lever who can make up for that the lack of counter press that he maybe provides. Although I still think he's not quite Ronaldo in that he walks around the pitch. I think he still moves even against the ball. But now Liverpool have a striker whose job is to score things that are put into the box, which they never really have had. I mean, Jota's fantastic in the air and made a great start to the season, but he's fallen off in the second half of the season. So I just think it might help Liverpool find a new way of playing so that they're not a one-trick pony, because I can guarantee if they play in exactly the same way they played this season next season, teams will have answers for it, because obviously everyone gets to watch Liverpool play in big games pretty much every week now this season. So everyone's been watching what we do. Everyone's been analysing it to death. So when you're a big club, that's a big challenge, is making sure that we have something different to bring to the table every season, every segment of a season. We need to bring something new. So Lewandowski, I think, fits that bill, and he hasn't stopped scoring goals. The well hasn't run dry. I don't think he's quite well, Ronaldo scored 18 when he came to the Premier League this season. So, but I'd be hoping for a bit more work against the ball than Ronaldo often showed. Sometimes he would show some good work, but I don't know if you want a solution. But the problem is, I think Lewandowski's wages will be too much anyway. So I think it's maybe a bit of a moot point. But I thought it was an interesting question because I think you're right in terms of the most realistic one is PSG if they lose Mbappe. I don't think Real Madrid will come in for Salah, even if they don't get Mbappe, because I think that they will just wait for Mbappe, and I don't think they'll do anything to jeopardise bringing in another player, maybe jeopardise their financial position to get Mbappe the next season, or jeopardise bringing in a player that doesn't really gel with Mbappe. That one's a definite watch this space, and the whole striker merry-go-round that we may encounter this summer will be really fascinating. I think that's one we should deep dive, maybe look at where we think players will end up, where we want players to end up. I think that will be a fascinating pod to do if we do that. Maybe when we don't have so much live football to talk about. But yeah, I mean, another interesting one is Tottenham will. And I don't know if you wanted to touch on the race for the top four, but obviously if Tottenham finish in the top four, then you can maybe take another name off that merry-go-round in Harry Kane. But if they don't, it will be fascinating to see if he wants to stay at Spurs, and if not, where he could go. Because while I just spoke about Lewandowski in that Liverpool system, Harry Kane would be unbelievable playing for Liverpool. I think he'd be unbelievable playing for City. He'd be unbelievable playing for Barcelona. While Karim Benzema's been far and away for me the best player of this season and the best striker, you can't discount Lewandowski and you can't discount Harry Kane because he is fantastic in his own right as well. So that striker merry-go-round might be fascinating, but yeah, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that top four going into the last day of the season just before we move away from the top of the Premier League, I guess.
Well, there's not really much to be said. Like, we touched on it in the last pod where Arsenal basically blew their chance at not necessarily securing it, but they've sort of they've closed the door on themselves to not get it. Essentially, considering Tottenham only need to go to Norwich, and they only really need a draw to secure it, just because they have like a 20+ goal difference. So there's not
Before you go on, I want to pose a question. Do you think if it was more like the Liverpool City situation and Tottenham had to win, would you have, obviously you'd have more belief, but would you actually believe that it was possible going into this, or do you think just the fact that Arsenal already lost that game to Newcastle, do you think it was just completely gone no matter what then?
Look, because it's Tottenham against Norwich, that should be, you expect it to be a blowout unless Norwich somehow pull off a performance, because they're already relegated. It's their last game at home in the Premier League. They could go out with a hurrah, or they could just go out with a whimper. So it really depends on Norwich. Like, we, instead of having that top four in our hands, we put the top four in the hands of the bottom of the league team. Like, that's, we've given it to them to decide who gets top four, really, and that's the reality of it. If Tottenham were, for instance, if their last game of the season was against, if it was against Leicester, even like those sort of like top 10 teams, like I'd have a little bit more faith, especially like going away to Brighton, going away to Brentford, going away to Leicester, going away to Wolves, even though Wolves got pumped by City like a week or two ago, going away to West Ham, Crystal Palace, going away to any Newcastle, going away to any of those teams, I would have faith. But going away to Norwich, was conceded 79 goals this season, and they've only scored 23. Yeah, I can't put much faith in that. Even them going to Leeds, I wouldn't have faith in it because Leeds have shipped so many goals. They've shipped 78. Like I wouldn't have faith in that either. But yeah, just because of the way the fixture is, it's pretty much congratulations Tottenham, unless Norwich can pull off unless Norwich can pull off a miracle.
He's trying to jinx it. Oh, that's brilliant. Um, but if I could offer you a silver lining, you're not only putting it in Norwich's hands, you've also put it in Tottenham's hands. And Tottenham, we've heard it all before. Can they Spurs it up, or can we see Agent Arteta just maybe put something in the lasagna over at the hotel they're staying over in Norwich, and we can have an '06 last day of the season again?
Hey, what's that? What was that story that one of our coaches told us, where apparently he put laxatives in the coffee or the tea pre-game before one of the finals?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe they need to take a page out of that. Maybe Harry Kane and Son might not be feeling too well for that game.
Yeah, but apparently there's rumours that some of them have gotten food poisoning. Is that right?
I don't know. How crazy is that? I think I saw Gary Lineker, was it, who tweeted that? I mean, unreal. If that happens again, just like '06. But I think you're right. The fact that they're playing Norwich, and Norwich have shown nothing to suggest, and this will lead into probably the next topic, but Norwich have shown nothing to suggest that they're a Premier League team in really any way, shape or form. They've given it another feeble effort at the top level of English football. And look, if they're going to come back like this again, don't bother coming back because we don't want to see you again. I mean, what was the point? They just did exactly pretty much what they did the last time they were up. I don't know, maybe Dean Smith will put something different into them, but they were a waste of space, and I guess you're hoping they go out with a hurrah, but if the whole season's performance is anything to go by, then there's not much chance of it. I do think if Tottenham needed to win, there would be a lot. If I was an Arsenal supporter, I'd have a lot more belief. I wouldn't be saying, oh yeah, I think we're going to do it, but I would have a lot more belief because I think the difference between a big team drawing and losing in a game like this is massive, because I think the chances of losing the game are really minimal. But the chances of drawing, I mean, now you add that to the chances of losing, and then you have a much bigger percentage chance, obviously to get the desired result. So, but the fact that Arsenal couldn't take a point at Newcastle really, for me, 99% made that Tottenham will finish top four, and it'll be good for the competitiveness of the league, but obviously as a Liverpool supporter who's already one of two up the top there, it's probably not the result I wanted. I probably would have preferred to see Arsenal finish in that top four because I think they would have been far less of a threat next season than Tottenham. Nah, that's how I feel. When you've got Kane and Son, when you've already got two world-class players, your job is halfway there. You just need to build around those two, but Arsenal don't really have any world-class players, and they would have needed to build something pretty much from scratch. While I think for most part of the season they've played the better football, Tottenham, no doubt, have the bigger threats.
Yeah, but I think Kane leaves if they don't win, if they don't get Champions League, and Son is a possible leave as well. So yeah, them making Champions League keeps them, so that makes them a threat. Whereas yeah, if Arsenal made it, Tottenham wouldn't have been a threat. So
yeah, and I think after the Newcastle result, we talked about that and the implications it could have on the league. So, yeah, they've just got to make sure they don't lose to Norwich, make sure they don't do anything Spursy, and they should be all right. And, I mean, as an Arsenal supporter, all you can do is hope that you beat Everton and just wait and see. But it's not looking good.
Yeah, and that fixture actually became a lot easier with Everton beating Crystal Palace as well. So, because Everton don't need to play for their lives now, they can actually, from one perspective, they can play with a massive weight lifted on their shoulders, so they probably won't be as nervous. So, from one perspective, they could play better because they won't have those nerves. But then, from the other perspective, yeah, they could be like, well, last game of the season, we've secured ourselves. Doesn't matter whether we win, lose, or draw. Like, it, yeah. So, but that game became a lot less pressurized by both teams, really, because realistically, and you said it, it's a 99% chance that Tottenham lock top four just based on who they're playing. So both teams will go into that game with like pretty much no pressure, I believe.
And while you brought it up, pitch invasions, you're a fan?
Look, I saw it. hang on. I want to try and see it from both perspectives, because I saw it the other week when was it Stuttgart? Wait, who finished? Let me just bring up the Bundesliga, because I don't want to get the team wrong. I think it was Stuttgart.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Stuttgart scored a last. Are you talking about the last minute goal?
Yeah, they scored in like scored in like the 92nd or 93rd minute, and the captain scored as well, and that secured their survival. And I saw and they're playing at home as well, so they're playing at home. I saw all of the players come onto the field, and all the fans come onto the field, and okay, at the beginning I was like, okay, this is cool, but then I started seeing them like hanging off the goals, and sort of I saw the reaction of the players as well, like especially those players that were fans that were just like bundling up on, especially on the captain, and the captain just wanted to get, you could tell by his body language and his face, he just wanted to get the hell out of there and celebrate with his team. But he was surrounded by all these fans. Luckily, they weren't hostile, but you could tell he was uncomfortable, like the captain of the club. And yeah, I saw all the fans like hanging off the goals and hanging off the nets, sitting on top of the nets, and like they're going to cause some damage that the club is obviously going to have to like, you know, pay for things. Probably some of the security barriers as well. So like yes, it's a nice moment from one perspective, but then you're also making your club have to pay maybe a couple of $1,000s for repairs and things like that as well. So you're putting it's not mass, like it's not like they're destroying the entire stadium and they have to fork out like $100,000 or euros to fix the stadium. But there's still going to be some expenses there that they could have. You know, they could have hired an extra cleaner or someone extra in the cafeteria for that same money that they're going to have to expend on repairs. But then you have the flip side, where in England, that was for the most part what looked like a respectable celebration, and that probably comes down to culture as well, and especially the footballing ideology and culture in both countries. Then you have the flip side, where you have was it Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United, where you have a player that gets did he actually end up having to go to hospital to get stitches and stuff, because he got like bundled over and he got like punched and something as well. What was his name? Sharp. Can't remember the first name. Billy, yeah, and he was a former Forest player as well, I believe. So you have players getting attacked then. And then you also have the Everton one where Vieira... Did Vieira kick a fan? Yeah. But it looked like he was doing it in self-defense. So, like...
it wasn't... It wasn't self-defense, but he was being provoked.
It was precautionary self-defense. I think it's that same... Like, I think in terms of the law, if you're out on the street and you feel fear of being attacked, you're allowed to strike first, and you won't actually have any repercussions for yourself. So it's that. So I think it falls into that sort of area. I haven't seen the footage of it, but I've heard people explain it. But at the same time, players and coaches and staff, they shouldn't be put into that position where they're faced, like, you know, by fans within a meter or 2 meters. Like, fans should not be on the pitch. Like, yes, they can hurl abuse from them, and like when you're going down the tunnel and stuff, that's the closest that they generally get. But they shouldn't be put in that situation at all, really. Like, what would have been good, for instance, why don't we get all the players off? Let's keep the home players on so Everton can stay on the pitch and they can celebrate with the fans, but let the away players and the away staff go back into the change rooms first. Protect them, because they're the ones that are most likely the one that are going to be hurt. Because the fans aren't going to hurt their own players based on a good performance and then based on them staying up. So I can see both sides of it, where it's a nice sort of moment for the club and the city. Generally, if it's a one city club and stuff like that. But I can also see the dangers of it as well. So you either need to allocate for it, where you say, okay, fans, you can come onto the pitch, just wait for the opposition to go off, and you can celebrate. Or no, you're not allowed on at all. Otherwise, you get a lifetime ban, and that's it. Full stop. No questions asked. Just stop it right before giving it any chance. And we've seen in recent weeks, especially this season, we've seen a lot of pitch invasions from that, like compared to other seasons, and fans have been more rowdy this season. Maybe because they've been locked up for 2 years because of COVID and everything. It seems like they're on that sort of edge of angst or whatever you want to call it. Like it's not. Then they're not really in a good place. Like the fans, from what I can see, they're sort of skating that fine line of going mad and just letting out all their frustration and anger, and keeping calm. They're on that fine line, and that's based on like the whole social aspect of everything that we've been through over the past 2 years. So I'm not for pitch invasions. I think for the most part, I'm not for it at all. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Take us back to empty stadiums, right?
No. Like,
no. I'm just kidding, man. I'm just kidding. Look. From the player's perspective, I would be absolutely shitting myself if thousands of people were charging towards me.
Yep.
I would be Larry Birding my ass right the hell out of that ground. I would be getting myself to the change room as quickly as I could. Because I don't know these people. I know they're fans, but I don't know you. You're charging towards me. There's thousands of you. Like, it is dangerous. It is dangerous. I get the emotion, and I get that you're so happy that you stayed up, but I don't know. I think if we could avoid pitch invasions, I think they should be avoided at all costs. I don't think it should happen. Even though, like, you get that scenery, you get those shots that you can maybe use for future years, but I know from a player's perspective, I'd be shitting myself.
Yeah, maybe
I'd be running over people just to get back to the change room. And I think your point about protecting opposition players and managers is a good one. I think that as soon as anything like that happens, because you can't really stop a pitch invasion. So as soon as you see anything like that happening, security to protect the opposition players first, I think is a good plan. And I don't know why Vieira was walking off the pitch by himself. He should have had a few security. I haven't actually seen the other incidents, but the Vieira one I have seen, and he definitely should have had a security guard or two around him. And he was provoked, and the guy who was being an idiot deserved to get kicked. So while you can put out all these messages, I don't condone Patrick Vieira's behaviour. Well, at the end of the day, the guy was an idiot and he should have been kicked. So what's the big problem?
You know what I want to see? I want to see
what?
I want to see Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane team up to fight these pitch invasions. just sort of like what?
Then fight each other.
Yeah, you know, like one of those, like a sort of like a Rocky movie moment, like Rocky 3, where Creed and Rocky team up to fight Mr. T. Like they both they put the differences aside, so like for that one moment, and then at the end of the movie they actually end up having like an off the record fight.
Yeah, it stops. Oh, yeah, when he gives him Creed speed, he needs to learn speed so that he can take down the juggernaut that is Mr. T. Oh, this is the best Rocky movie. Number 3 is the best one.
Number 4 is up there as well. Come on.
Oh, it's good for corniness in the montage, but number 3 when Mickey gives Rocky the speech about he got too civilized because he was beating all these bums. I love it. Oh, that's the best Rocky movie.
Yeah, just have like Roy Keane and Vieira team up and just like start smashing these pitch invaders.
No. the one you need, and they're both French, you need Cantona to help Vieira. He can teach you how to kick him properly.
Yeah, but didn't Cantona actually invade the stands, not the other way around?
Yeah, Cantona did the stand invasion.
Yeah, but that would be the ultimate like throwback to an 80s classic team up like movie.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so while we move away from all matters pitch invasion, after a nice 10-15 minute talk, I think it'll be a good time to look at sort of the rest of the Premier League, and we're thinking we'll do something a little bit fun and take Man City and Liverpool out of the Premier League and come up with a best 11 of the rest. Best of the rest 11, if you will. There was discussion between us whether we should take out Chelsea or not, but we've decided to keep them in. So how it's going to work, we get one pick each. Should we start from goalkeeper and work our way up, or do we just randomly select picks?
We'll start from the goalkeeper and like we'll try and get some agreement there. But you mean one veto pick each, or what do you mean?
Yeah, so we each pick a player if we're working from goalkeeper. So I'll give you the first pick. You pick the goalkeeper, and then, as you say, we're gonna make it a little fun as it's a combined one where we each have one pick that we can cement into the team, and we have one of the other person's picks we can veto, so that they can't get into the team if we feel strongly about either or. So I think, obviously, with me hosting it tonight, you, as the guest, you can have first pick if we're starting from goalkeeper, the best of a rest 11.
You mean
pick in the goalkeeper?
You mean co-host, man, not guest.
Yeah. Well, we take it in turns. Someone's hosting, someone's...
Yeah.
All right. You're co-hosting tonight, then.
Yeah, come on, man. Give me the recognition I deserve. I'm your Kyrie to your LeBron tonight.
I already reckon. All right, don't. Are you? Oh yeah, you don't want the vaccination, so that's perfect.
Hey man, we can't talk about that, otherwise we'll get shadow banned on YouTube.
We're gonna get cancelled.
Yeah. Okay, so goalkeeper. Like, I think the easy one would be to go for Mendy.
No, I wouldn't veto it, but
yeah,
he's a good goalkeeper. But I know who you're going to pick, and I know who you want to pick, and I would agree with your pick if it is who I think.
What, Nick Pope?
Nick Pope's all right.
Yeah,
he's all right.
Nah, I'm gonna go for Aaron Ramsdale. I think he's had overall the better season. I've seen Mendy sort of be up and down the way that the whole Chelsea team has been. I haven't seen him be as consistent as he was last season. So yeah, I'm gonna go Ramsdale in goal just because he's, for the most part, he's pretty much been consistent. He's had like one or two sort of mishaps or notable mishaps, but nothing really that great. Like he's pretty much had solid, 6 or 7 out of 10 performances, and even in the Arsenal losses, you wouldn't say he's been responsible for them the same way that our goalkeepers in the past have been responsible for them, like a Fabianski or a Szczesny pre, obviously, Juve. So you wouldn't say that our losses have been down to goalkeeping mistakes. They've been more down to team performance, I suppose. Right. So I'm going for Ramsdale. I'm not sure whether you agree with that one or not, or if you want to give a shout out to a certain player that maybe I'm overlooking.
Yeah, well, I agree with your pick all in all. I do want to give a shout out, and I said, I think in one of the earlier pods, that I wouldn't put him as French number one anymore. I still think I stand by that just because there's a really quality goalkeeper at AC Milan in Mike Mignon. But Hugo Lloris, I thought, has had a pretty solid second half of the season. I thought it was a bit shaky in the first half, but his second half of the season has been pretty good. So a shout out to him. I also think Jose Sarr at Wolves has had a really good season.
Yep.
But apart from that, And David De Gea, if we're only taking out
Ooh,
the top two,
yeah.
he might. In fact, he might have a shout. I don't want to go so strongly as to veto Aaron Ramsdale because I think he's been probably for me the surprise of the season, and he's been fantastic. I think, and I know I always mention it, but after that Liverpool game at the Emirates, I don't think he's quite been the same. But however, his level at the start of the season was like Mo Salah of goalkeepers. He was that good at the start of the season. It felt like every week he was pulling out a world class save. So I'm definitely not in a position to veto the Ramsdale pick, but De Gea definitely does have an argument. But it's so hard to put any United player in any form of a team of the season with the way they've performed. So I'm pretty happy with Ramsdale at goal.
All right, at least we agree on that. But yeah, the De Gea one would have. I think if they at least challenged a little bit better for top four, I think I probably would have put him in there.
Yeah, I agree. So do I have to pick a right back or can I go to left back?
You can go to left back if you want.
Look, at left back, I'm going to go with a player with really distinctive hair, and I'm going to put Mark Cucurella for Brighton at left back. I think he's had a fantastic season. I know they deploy him as a left-sided centre back at times, which I think is fantastic to have a player with that versatility. He's not the biggest, but he does a really good job as a left-sided centre back. He could probably, with his qualities, he could probably play central midfield for a team because he's a good technical player as well. But his day job's more. I saw him at Getafe, and he was. I think he might have played a few games at wing there, but as a left back or a left wing back for Brighton or a left centre back, I think he's been fantastic, and I think Brighton have been fantastic, and he's been a big part of it. So he'd be my choice at left back. I don't know. Yeah, if you want to do the same thing, shout outs, veto, whatever you want to do with that pick.
This obviously might be my my bias for Arsenal, but Tierney I think was having a fantastic season up until he got injured.
Too injured though.
Yeah,
that's my problem.
Chilwell as well was having a very good season.
Again,
at
Chilwell,
Chelsea.
Chilwell probably would have been it.
Yeah.
If he didn't get injured, because he was and you've said it. If those wing backs didn't get injured when they were, and Chelsea didn't suffer those injuries, who knows if Chelsea would still be in this title race? You know, because they were playing that well with those wing backs, because they were scoring and assisting a lot.
Yeah, and you have Creswell as well. I know West Ham have fallen off towards the end of the season.
Yeah, he did. He really all those red cards, especially the Europa League, sort of. I know not every player plays in the Europa League, but it left a bit of taste in my mouth.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty decent shout out. Like you got Davies at Tottenham, but he sort of plays in a 3 rather than if we're going for a traditional 4, then it doesn't really fit.
Yeah, I guess Cucurella does the same, but I just think he gives you more options. He could play as a wing back, whereas if Davies was a wing back, I wouldn't be filled with too much confidence. I think he's an out-and-out left centre back now. He doesn't give you the same options.
You do have Rico Henry from Brentford as well. He's had a pretty decent season.
Yeah, it's a good shout out. I still wouldn't put him above though.
Yeah, true. All right. Look, I'll. I don't think that's one that I'm feel incredibly strongly about to, I guess, concede it or veto. I guess to veto it, not to concede it. Like so. Yeah, I think that's a decent shout out. Right back. I'll go for right back. I'll give a shout out to Reece James. I'm not sure I'd pick him just because he missed, like, I guess that third quarter of the season because he missed January to March or something like that.
Yeah, it's more interesting if we take Reece James out of it because I think of the best of the rest, he clearly is the best right now. But if we take him, I reckon it's more interesting.
Yeah, but he would have been just an instant name on the team sheet if he wasn't injured, and he has been okay over the last couple of weeks, but he hasn't been the Reece James pre-injury. And who's you got Emerson and Sanchez at Tottenham that sort of can fill in there. I want to give a shout out to Tomiyasu as well. I think he would have been like pretty much.
Oh, you're not going to pick him?
No, I'm not going to pick him because he's been injured like for like pretty much the second half of the entire second half of the season. So
you know what? He's impressed me enough that I would have picked him if right back was my pick.
Yeah,
I would have picked Tomiyasu.
Yeah, but the problem is that he's been injured more than Reece James. So if you're not going to pick Reece James,
nah, I know, and this is why we had a discussion about whether we should put Chelsea in or not. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to go with the less obvious selection. You know, just want to make it a bit more fun.
Yeah,
Reece James is too easy. It feels too easy, doesn't it?
What about Soufal from West Ham?
Nah, I'm not convinced. He's good in a back five, but when I've seen him play in a back four, I'm just not convinced. And that own goal against City, really, he shouldn't have done that.
It's cemented it. You know who would have been interesting to see if he didn't get injured after like the first 3 or 4 games? Trippier at Newcastle. It would have been because he actually started really well, so that would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree.
How he
would have been pushing for it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, just out of all the names that we've mentioned, it's really a toss-up between Reece James and Tomiyasu then.
Yeah, it is.
So
that's the conclusion I've come to.
Yeah, so like out of both, like and like really for me, it's really like I think I'd go for Reece James over Tomiyasu just because he's been injured for less of the season and he's had more of an impact, I guess. But it's
the right pick.
Yeah. And look, from an attacking standpoint, he's better than Tomiyasu, but from a defensive standpoint, Tomiyasu is better.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Tomiyasu.
Yeah, because Tomiyasu can play centre back as well.
Yeah. Well, Reece James plays as one of the three as well. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the right pick, and they're the right two to narrow it down to. I think so. I'm definitely not going to veto that.
Yep.
I don't think I have any other shout outs. I think maybe if Leicester had a better season, maybe Castagna and Ricardo Pereira, they looked alright, but nah. No other right backs really stand out. Trippier was a good shout.
Who's the name's escaping me for Brighton who plays like right back or right mid?
Oh, there's Lamptey, the winger looking one.
Yeah. But
yeah, he's really solid. But I don't know if he could play as one of the four. That's my problem with him. But he is a really good wing back.
Yeah,
good shout out. So I guess I got centre back. All right. Well, if we go on the right choices and the easy choices, one of the centre backs has to be Rudiger. I don't think there can be too many questions about
that. I'm not going to argue with you there. I think he would be the obvious choice. The shout-outs for me would be, I think Varane was okay before he had, I think, that first injury at United. But United started the season off pretty well. But from memory, they were only facing the middle of the table, bottom of the table teams in their first 5 or 6 games. That's why they were near the top of the table. But Varane was okay. With Manchester United, the problem was that it was the team, not Varane. So, but yeah, I'll give him a shout out, but I'm not going to put him in the team. I'm not sure whether you agree with my thoughts on that one or not. At least with the shout out.
He definitely can't be in the team. And whether rightly or wrongly, you've got to look at him compared to what he can do as well.
Yeah.
And compared to what he could do, he has done less than 50% of it. He's been maybe he started all right, but he's been very poor since.
But he's had injury troubles the whole season pretty much. So he's been in and out of that team. So you can't get that run of consistency. What about Maguire? Give him a shout out.
Yeah, you're definitely not putting him in.
I'm gonna veto that one just so I can stick him in there. No, screw him. I think Benjamin White and Gabriel are very good shout-outs, and it's very hard to pick between the two. if Rudiger's playing on the right side, you're probably going to put Gabriel in there just because he's a left footer and he can play on that side, just so you have that sort of left-right balance.
So who's your ultimate pick?
But you also have from Tottenham. You also have, I think, was it Romero has impressed me.
Romero and White are a toss-up for me. So if you're going to pick like a White style, then between him and Romero would be a toss-up.
Yeah.
But I got another name in mind.
Who do you have in mind?
I have Mark Gay. I would have put Mark Gay as the left-sided centre-back from Palace. I think he's had a really good season.
Yeah. That's a decent shout-out. But I think just because of where, I guess, Tottenham are, I think I'm going to go for Romero, to be honest. And that's just...
I don't know if I feel strongly enough about that to veto it, because Tottenham this season, and Romero wasn't there. He was there, but I don't know. I don't think he was playing much at the start of the season. But Tottenham have conceded 40 goals this season. And if you compare that to Palace have only conceded 46. And even if you compare it to Brighton, with Lewis Dunk as the captain and the central centre-back there, Brighton have only conceded 43. So, look, if you're looking at the team's defensive record, it's not a whole lot difference there. I think the reason Tottenham are where they are, I'm not making news by saying it, but it's Kane and Son. And maybe true. The Conte factor a little bit as well. So if I'm going to put a case to you before you make your selection, that would be my case for Mark Kay.
You know what? I'm actually gonna go for Gabriel, just so we have that balance of because if we also are going to try and make this team functional. So have that balance of right foot, left foot in the centre-back pairing. I think I'm going to go over Gabriel, because Gabriel and Ben White have been a little bit of a toss-up for me. Gabriel has just been that more physical presence. I'm not sure whether he pairs up well with Rudiger, though, or whether Ben White would be a better match for Rudiger, because they're both sort of more on the physical side than the tactical nuance, sort of smartness side. So...
do we have to use a veto in the moment?
We can use them at the end if we want. How about that?
All right. If we can use them at the end, I'll allow Gabriel to stand for now, but I'm more inclined to veto him if you pick Gabriel. Right. But I want to see what else you pick before I do that.
All right, I'm picking Gabriel. So we don't have to agree ahead of time on whether we're going 4-3-3. We can actually just pick four midfielders, and that way we're stuck with the 4-4-2, so or whatever formation. So it depends who you want to get in there.
Oh, do I just do the easy one? Yeah. Well, the first one you've got to put in is Rice, is it not? It's Declan Rice.
As a defensive mid, or as a mid, or in the centre mid of a four?
Well, that depends on who you choose next.
Yeah.
So if you want another holding and play with a double pivot, you can do that, or you could play him as the only one. But he has to be in the team. I don't think there's any disagreement there.
Yep, I agree with that one.
Should we start going through the names? Are you looking at central midfielders?
Yeah, and central/defensive, who can sort of fill that both those roles. I want to give a shout out to Partey. I'm not going to pick him though.
Yeah, too injured, and I think that would be the problem of all the Chelsea central midfielders as well. Either injured or not in the team all the time.
I think
otherwise Conte and probably Kovacic.
I was actually going to pick Kovacic.
Just a little too injured, although he's been fantastic this season. I almost want to take Chelsea out of it. But you're right, because up until last weekend, they had a chance of missing out on top four. So they really are of the rest. They're not in the Liverpool City category.
Yeah, because they're 20 points behind them, pretty much. 18 points behind Liverpool and 19 behind City. So
should we throw out the names of the central midfielders who who we could have. So we got Rice. Bentancur, because he's only been there half a season, gets docked out of that list. Partey as well, as you say. Ruben Neves has been very good this season, and Wolves have had a good season, but he got injured I don't know if it was like a month ago or something, a few weeks ago. So that sort of hampered him. Yuri Tielemans at Leicester, always pretty solid performer whenever I watch him play.
He's had injuries as well.
Yeah. Yves Bissouma from Brighton has had a really good season. Guimaraes only half a season, but he's been unreal since he got into that Newcastle team. Really, really good. Obviously, not a holding midfielder, but a central midfielder. Conor Gallagher has been fantastic. He'll have a big shout of getting at least one of those places. James Ward-Prowse has been nominated for Player of the Season, and even though Southampton are down there, he's had a good season. So there's a few names in central midfield.
See, and like I'm removing all bias here. Like if we're going, it's just so hard because like Kovacic does stand out for me because the games that he has played, he's actually been like outstanding in them.
Yeah, world class. He's been really good when he's played this season.
Exactly. So, and I know that how many games has he had in the? Let's see if I can get his stats up for this season.
He was one I wasn't actually sold on until recently, until pretty much maybe the second half of last season and this season. I remember there was one game at Spurs, I think Chelsea were losing like 2-0 in the first 20 minutes, and he got the ball on like the left wing, and he tried a Rabona cross, and he mucked it up, and it went out of play, but his team were 2-0 down and getting killed, and he tried a Rabona cross. I was just like, what the hell are you doing, man? But since then, he's really turned me around.
Yeah. He's actually played 25 games this season, so he's played 2/3.
Look, if you were to pick him, I definitely wouldn't veto him because of those midfielders, he's probably the best.
And I think if we're going to go for a 4, he can play in a 4 or he can play in a 3, midfield. So
yeah, definitely. He plays as one of the two in Chelsea. So
so I'm gonna go for him.
Yeah, it's a fair pick. Right pick.
And you cut out. You said like, and then you didn't. I didn't hear the player.
Yeah, like Reece James. I think it's the right.
All right.
Do I pick a winger?
You can pick a winger, or you can pick a central mid. It's up to you whether you want to play. The only problem, I just thought of this. A lot of teams play with a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-1-3 or whatever. Like they play. They don't. There's hardly any teams that play 4-4-2 anymore. So it's hard.
Oh yeah. I think we just try and pick the best. So if we're going by the model of picking the best players, just putting them in, and we'll figure it out. Shall we do the easy ones next? And I'll pick Son, you pick Kane. Shall we just do that?
Yeah.
All right. So now it's back to my pick.
So is Son playing on the left-hand side?
That's where I've got him for now. Yeah. But we'll see who the next pick is. Because I don't think there's any other strikers who I'd really want to put in there, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another shout-out, and he won't get in because of this fact. But for central midfield, Joelinton at Newcastle.
Oh,
I think he's been fantastic since he moved into central midfield. So now we're looking at probably a right winger and a number 10, or maybe another third central midfielder. I wouldn't think Chelsea have had a winger good enough to get into the team.
Well, there's one that stands out automatically if we're going a front 3 on the left side.
On the left side?
Well, Son's playing... Oh, on the right side, sorry. Son's playing on the left.
Sacco?
Yeah. He's the one that stands out automatically.
We'll see. I would say that, but what about Jared Bowen from West Ham? He's been
Oh,
really good this season.
yeah. That's a really good shout.
And another winger who's been good this season, Harvey Barnes at Leicester. I think he's had a standout season as well. He looks like he's taken the next step.
Yeah, but wouldn't he'd take Son's position, wouldn't he?
No, you can play him on the right.
I think I'm
Or you can
mostly
play Son as one of them.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly seeing Barnes on the left from what I've seen of Leicester. But
Yeah, no, he has for sure. But I think he could play on the right as well. Yeah, I think it's between those three. Sacco, Bowen, and Barnes. And Barnes is probably the weakest side. Look, my vote would be for Jared Bowen. I don't know if you want to veto that one, but I'm going to put Bowen in ahead of Sacco.
Are you saying Sacco or Saka?
I'll say Sacco.
Now it's just Sack.
I was mixing. I was putting his first name along with his last name, so I was just getting a combination of the two.
Yeah, I just want to bring up Bowen's stats just to see whether at least his stats can justify it. Because Saka is definitely the more exciting player and like the more talented, you'd say.
Maybe, but Bowen's had a really good season.
Yeah,
I've been really impressed whenever I've watched him play.
12 goals in 35 games, and how's Saka?
Sacco.
Yeah, Sacco. 11 goals in 37 games. So then the only thing that would really separate them is the assists, really.
Who is it? I put Bowen in.
You're putting Bowen in? All right.
Yeah, I put him in. So you need to veto that. And you've got last pick.
Yeah, if I want to veto it. But there's also... We also... Not only do we have a veto, we also have a... So we are also, on the flip side, we also have a player that cannot be vetoed that we get to pick that has like the... What are some of those game shows where like... What are they get like a... I don't know, Bachelor, they get like a rose or something, but on Survivor they get like a golden statue or something like that, and then like they're immune from. So it depends who we want to give that player to. What player we want to give that to. So we're obviously going for a 4-3-3.
Well, maybe if you want, you could put in an extra centre back if you think there's been a centre back who's the most impressive. You could maybe use Reece James or Cucurella as a third centre-back and put a wing-back if you wanted. So there's a little bit of flexibility here, but the obvious one is a number 10 to just slot in there.
You know who I'm thinking of giving that to just because of their impact?
Who?
Eriksen.
Oh, that's a great shout. He has been fantastic in the second half of the season. Yeah. Really good.
And Brentford at one point were actually relegation battle as well, down in 16th, 17th.
Yeah, I was going to say that. They were struggling for a little bit. They had a really good start, and then they started to do that thing where the new team struggles a bit, and then Eriksen came in and just sort of rejuvenated them, or was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Do you want to put him in?
I'm putting him in. I would have put Odegaard in, but over the past like about 4 or 5 games, he's actually been very disappointing for me.
He's been asked to be captain as well, which is ridiculous. To not have a better captain than Odegaard is.
I would have given it to
symptomatic.
I would have given it to Ramsdale, to be honest, or Tierney, but Tierney hasn't played obviously. So
Tierney would have got it if he was playing for sure.
Yeah.
Eriksen's a really good shout, and I wouldn't have thought about him, but so like you say, Odegaard over the whole season's been really good. He probably would have been my shout. I know he's left a little. Look, it's hard to blame Odegaard because he relies on. It's not quite striker delivery, like relying on delivery, but he does rely on those central midfielders to be able to get him the ball, or the holding midfielders. And when you've got Xhaka and El Neni in there, that's a vast downgrade to probably Partey and, well, I guess it would have been Xhaka most of the time, but
yeah,
it's not all his fault. And I think he's been trying in those games. So
yeah, but it just seems like everything's been off. Like his first touch has been off. It seems like he's almost hiding behind the players in that midfield 3 or midfield 4 as well. So instead of and when he does come for the ball, yes, his first touch is off, so he ends up losing it on the second touch. So ever since like the international break, he's been very on off, which is disappointing.
What about Conor Gallagher as well?
Oh, that is a really good shout. That is a really good shout.
He's been really
That would for him to get in, he'd need to require your veto or your confirmation vote, I suppose. Like you either veto Eriksen
the question is, how much do you hold the fact that Eriksen couldn't start at the start of the season against him? Because I think Gallagher had a really great start of the season, and he hasn't like fully dropped off to being like poor in the second half of the season, but he hasn't quite had the same impact. Whereas Eriksen
had a massive impact.
Exactly. Eriksen didn't play at the start of the season, but has had a massive impact, kind of like Gallagher did at the start of the season, at the end of the season. So it's a bit of a toss-up. I would probably edge it to Gallagher just because he has played pretty much the whole season. But Eriksen's a great shout. So what's your final pick in there?
Eriksen. I think he's had a bigger impact in a shorter space of time, so I think we need to give him more props to that. Because he hit the ground running, essentially, like from game 1. And he's helped them avoid relegation. You could say that he's been pretty much the main reason that they've avoided relegation, because they were going to, it looked like back in January, it looked like they were going to battle for relegation.
Yeah, you've convinced me. No, you've convinced me. I'm not going to veto Eriksen.
Yeah.
All right, if I want to use a veto, I'm going to use it on Gabriel and put Mark Gay in there because I think we should have a Palace player in here. I'm going to use both my things to cement him into the team, and then you could do the same.
Oh, so you're using your confirmation, so that I can't then veto it, so that when we pick someone else altogether.
Yeah, exactly. So you could just put in Ben White. You have to take Rudiger out if you want to put Ben White in now.
Yeah. Nah, you can't not have Rudiger in there.
No, you can't.
Should I just use it on Kane just to piss off everyone? Or Son?
Give him some of that bad juju going into the last game.
Well, all right. Let's just give this a minute or two to discuss. If Kane had have continued the way he started the season, because he's had a bigger impact on the second half of the season than the first half. So
he was non-existent.
Ever since Conte came in, he's come back to his proper form, you'd say. So, what number 9 would you actually put up there? Because I can't think of any. Maybe Antonio, but he hasn't been scoring much. But he's been there for the link-up. Yeah, he's there for the link-up, but he doesn't score. Vardy has been injured for most of the season, but he's still scored some goals, but it's not the same Vardy from years past.
It's a pretty easy one. It's Ronaldo, isn't it?
Yeah. what was it, 18 goals he said in the Premier League?
Yeah, 18 this season.
Yeah.
But like that, I think that shows you the lack of strength in the striker position in the league, because even when you look at City and Liverpool, they don't have any true strikers either.
Yeah, no team really does. Like Chelsea has Lukaku, but he's been off the pace completely.
Yeah, exactly. So Tottenham and Kane are really the only true strikers in, like, true world class anyway in the league.
Yeah, if you're talking, because like Antonio offers so much in terms of he offers very similar in terms of Kane, in terms of like build up play and holding the ball up, but he just doesn't have.
Well, not build up, but hold up play.
Yeah, hold up.
I think that Harry Kane, because he can range of passing.
Yeah, he can deliver as well.
Puts him on different levels.
Yeah, but Antonio, if Antonio could at least score the same amount that Kane has, he would have an argument there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But as it is.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah, I think it'd be Ronaldo. If you took Kane out, I think it would still be Ronaldo.
And who would come in for Son? I know Son is one goal off the Golden Boot, so he's pretty much like an automatic, like he's a confirmation any way you put it. But some shout outs, I think Martinelli would be a good shout out there. He doesn't have the goals to back it up, but I think in terms of talent, he is there. Like, and maybe as he matures, he will become a Son. He'll become on the level of Son in terms of the end product. You can put Mason Mount in there, but he hasn't had that great of a season either, really, to be honest.
Oh yeah, Mason Mount's had a really good. For me, he's had a really good season. So I'm glad you finally brought his name up because that's probably what we should have brought up.
Yeah, but you can't put him anywhere into the team really because has he been better than Bowen and Son?
He is Chelsea's top scorer this season, but I think he's on 11 or 12, so he's still around the same amount as Bowen. You could probably put him in any one of those three behind the striker, but I wouldn't veto any three, and he definitely couldn't replace Son. But I wouldn't veto Bowen or Eriksen for Mount, even though I think Mount's been pretty good this season.
Yeah, there's not really. You can a shout out would be Zaha from Palace. He's been very good this season as well. He's always a danger man.
He is always a danger man. Yeah. You're right there. But I think he's been better in previous seasons to what he's done this season.
Yeah.
I think Gallagher's been the main driving force of Palace in the attacking sense.
Also, I'll give a slight shout out to Richarlison just in terms of his importance because I know Everton as a whole team have been terrible, but Richarlison has sort of been that shining light because he's been pretty much the only attacking outlet with Calvert-Lewin injured for like almost the whole season. And he's the one that got that goal against Chelsea as well. So, and he's been that focal point of the attack. So I'll give a shout out to him, but he's obviously not getting in over Kane or Son or Bowen.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think it would have been probably more interesting if we took, well, maybe not more interest, but it would have been interesting if we took Chelsea and Tottenham. If we took the whole top four out to see what kind of team we would have come up with then.
Yeah, but the top four is not confirmed yet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm actually going to veto Bowen and put Saka in there.
All right.
I know he's been a very good shout, but considering also that Arsenal are finishing above West Ham as well, I want to have a look at the assists too, but let me just see if I can bring that up.
Yeah, look, I think that was a toss-up anyway.
Yeah.
So you making that move is fine by me.
But yeah, like I think that's our 11. So we got Ramsdale in goal,
All right.
Reece James,
Yep.
Rudiger, Gay, Cucurella, Rice and Kovacic in the midfield, and Eriksen in front of them, Saka, Kane and Son in the front three.
Pretty good team. That's if you take out Kane and Son and probably the Chelsea players, I would think that Newcastle United might be eyeing up a lot of those players for next season.
Or not Saka or Ramsdale.
Oh yeah, not the Arsenal. All right, not the Arsenal, the Chelsea, or the Tottenham players, but the rest, the Cucurellas, the Gays.
Not Rice though either. So only Cucurella and Gay really.
Afford Rice,
they
but
could.
Rice wouldn't go to Newcastle yet.
No,
because Newcastle aren't better than West Ham yet.
Rice could.
But Eriksen might be an interesting one.
Yeah, Rice could actually go to Chelsea, I think, because I think he was at their academy in like under 10s or something before going to West Ham, and he's very good friends with Mason Mount.
Can you imagine him and Conte playing together?
If Conte returns to
two
form.
players to do. Yeah, I haven't given up on him yet, but this is the first time in pretty much since he became a world-class player that I've seen him in bad form.
Yeah.
So it'd be a bit unfair to give up on him yet. But if you could get two players like that, you would never need a third central midfielder because no one could get past those two.
Yeah, exactly. That would be an insanely solid midfield.
Problem is Chelsea needs centre backs. So if their next signing isn't a replacement centre back, I'll start to get worried for them. To be quite honest,
Yeah.
Well, not really, because I don't want him to do well. So.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how they go. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid 11.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, and it's a fun little gimmick, and it gave us an opportunity to sort of cast our eye over the rest of the league, because I know we spend a lot of time, and rightly so, talking about City and Liverpool, but we just got an opportunity to sort of talk about who we think standout performers from the rest of the league have been. So that's a fun topic, and I think a good one to finish on, because we've done all our preview for the weekend. We must mention that there is still a title race in Serie A as well. But Milan can afford to draw on the last day, and I think because of the head-to-head, they'll still win the title over Inter. And they got the really hard fixture of Atalanta out of the way last weekend. So I think Milan should have enough to bring it home. And then once all the leagues are wrapped up, I know we talked about our last pod about potentially doing our all-star teams or teams of the year. We'll do 3 teams of the year of the first, second, and third team, but we decided just to do it after the season's finished, because with all of this uncertainty, especially around maybe the Premier League, I mean, we expect City to win, as we've talked about, but there is still jeopardy and uncertainty, and then uncertainty for top 4 as well. So just best if we let all that play out, and we'll probably do those teams next week sometime. But
yeah, and that's
Nev.
That's an episode. That's an episode in itself. Like an entire episode can be dedicated to that, because it's going to be such a long topic.
Yeah, it might be a quick review of the weekend and then that, or it might be a quick preview of the Champions League and then that. But I'm pretty sure we'll do it next week sometime. So lots of research and teams to get ready for then. I'm looking forward to that one, that's for sure. But we got to see what happens in the season for sure, and very excited to see what happens in the Premier League, and hopefully that game at the Etihad drags into the 20th and then the 25th and then the 30th minute, and City still haven't scored. And we start to hear a few nails being bitten and a few murmurs in the crowd, and then let's just ratchet up that furnace at the Etihad, that expectation. Very exciting. I can't wait.
I'm hoping that City clinch it, because I don't want to see you guys taking the quaddie.
All right. Whatever. I said I wanted Tottenham to win the North London derby, so I deserve that. But we'll see. Nev, if you don't have anything to add, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to talk about what we see over the weekend and preview the Champions League final next week and give our team of the year selections as well.
100%. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nev, and thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll be tuning in again soon to hear all of the goodies we got next week. Thanks, guys.